Good morning. My name is Kathy Williams, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 140 in your gray hymnal, Hail the Glorious Golden City.
My name is Monica, and I am the treasurer of the Board of Trustees of UUCHV. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. We have one announcement. Pledge drive kicked off. Thank you to Megan and Chris. And thank you to Ginny for doing a testimonial in the e-news, so you can read that. Please send in your pledges as soon as you can. It will help us budget for next year. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-news and check our website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for our staff, Board of Trustees, and other congregational leaders. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you are present in the sanctuary, feel free to stay right here for mass conversation. If you are watching the live stream, the link to the Zoom coffee hour is found in your Saturday reminder email and on our website. If you're just recently joining us this morning, please, and you would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us with your name and we will make sure you are added to our email list. We can also answer any questions you might have. Email us at uukroton@gmail.com or fill out one of the yellow cards in the backs of the pews and drop it in the collection plate. Please silence your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
We gather in the questions. What is the purpose of all this, we ask? Why is it so? How can we make it as good as it should be? Who are we and what are we becoming? What is life, love, happiness? What should we value? What is true? What do we mean by the divine, the holy, the religious? How should we relate to everything? We gather in questions, and the questions never end.
These chalice lighting words are from Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace. Now please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to this microphone. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light a candle for you.
Good morning, I'm Susie. I've talked about this before. The board of my library is doing a very poor job, and the state has stepped in and is taking it over. And we've had one person resign, and they have to, the other ones get a chance to say why they should be on it, but they have no reason. So. Anyway, it's good.
Hi, I'm Betsy. This is personally significant, even though it seems like it might not be, which is I went to the Museum of Modern Art on Friday and saw an exhibit by Sophie Tauber-Arp, and it was fantastic. And it closes March 12th, so try to go. Thank you.
Somebody came up to me before the service started and is feeling very, very worried about the possible invasion in Ukraine. Her significant other's parents are there. She's very worried.
I'm Jenny Stillman, and yesterday Jim and I and Daria went to the Bethany Arts Center in Ossining, where there is a wonderful Black History Month exhibit that is not to be missed. It's on until March 12th.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they can share their joys and sorrows.
I invite you now to join in the spirit of meditation. You may wish to do so by sitting up a little straighter wherever you are, planting your feet on the floor to ground you to the earth. Close your eyes if you wish, or leave them just slightly open. And slowly take in a nice deep breath, releasing all of the stress of the week. I got this meditation from Scientific American, the top 10 wonders of science. The universe contains physical laws and natural processes that allow complexity to emerge. Without this feature, then nothing. 2, there are more stars in the universe than words ever uttered by all the humans who ever lived. 3. As Elizabeth Johnson wrote, out of the Big Bang, the stars, out of the stardust, the earth, single-celled living creatures, out of evolutionary life and death of these creatures, human beings with a consciousness and freedom. 4. Every individual bacterium, cockroach, and sparrow that ever existed, every person, frog, and cucumber, owes its existence to a completely unbroken stream of DNA stemming from the earliest replicators through every creature that lives today. 5. Science, as Loyal Rue wrote, documents our essential kinship as no other story can do, fashioned from the same stellar dust and energized by the same star, nourished by the same planet, endowed with the same genetic code, and threatened by the same evils. 6. Conscious experience, along with existence itself, is the greatest scientific wonder of all. We are a part of nature that can know and experience truth, invent, love, be moral, feel indescribable emotion, and consciously plan for the future. 7. The findings of modern science are mind-boggling. Matter is energy, space itself can bend, time slows down at great speeds, great energies can be released from tiny nuclei, the universe is expanding and the rate of expansion accelerating. We can communicate almost instantaneously across the planet. We travel through air and space in flying machines and can even turn the spotlight of discovery around towards our own minds and behavior. 8. The benefit of modern science to our well-being and comfort are extraordinary. Thanks to scientific medicine and public health, human life expectancy has nearly doubled since our great-grandparents' day. 9. Science in the future, if applied with wisdom, may be valued not just for its fantastic technological uses and discovery of facts, but also, as René Dubois put it, to understand as well as possible the nature of life, of humanity, in order to give more meaning and value to human existence. And finally, number 10. And here is a scientific astonishment that should hit home deeply for every one of us. The odds of a, quote, specific me coming into existence are so statistically and incalculably improbable, it is, quite bluntly, a deep wonder and privilege just to be alive. Let us be together now in a moment of silent meditation.
Our reading today is from a book called The Quantum and the Lotus. And can you please say the authors' names? I forgot to ask you how to say them. Okay.
Matthew Ricard and Trin Huan Huang.
Thank you. The Buddhist notion of interdependence is synonymous with emptiness, which is in turn synonymous with impermanence. The world is like a vast stream of events and dynamic currents that are all interconnected and constantly interacting. This concept of perpetual, omnipresent change chimes with modern cosmology. Aristotle's immutable heavens and Newton's static universe are no more. Everything is moving, changing, and impermanent, from the tiniest atom to the entire universe, including the galaxies, stars, and mankind. The same goes for the atomic and subatomic world. There, too, everything is impermanent. Particles can change their nature. A quark can change its family or flavor. A proton can become a neutron and emit a positron and a neutrino. Matter and antimatter annihilate each other to become pure energy. The energy of a particle's motion can be transformed into another particle and vice versa. In other words, an object's property can become an object. Because of quantum uncertainty of energy, the space around us is filled with an unimaginable number of virtual particles with fleeting ghost-like existences. Constantly appearing and disappearing, they are a perfect illustration of impermanence with their infinitely short life cycles. So, reality can be perceived in various ways and different approaches. One turned inward and the other outward, different approaches can lead to the same truths. Buddhism will surely not find such agreement surprising, since the world of phenomena can be observed only through the filter of consciousness, and given that consciousness itself is interdependent on the exterior world, the fundamental nature of phenomena cannot be alien to the Buddha's enlightened mind. Now please rise as you are able and willing and join us in singing hymn number 97, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child.
Sometimes I feel like
this morning I am venturing not into completely unfamiliar waters, but ones not visited in a very long time, namely the intersection between science and religion. In my youth, believe it or not, I was enamored with the physical sciences and thought that they would be an area that I would pursue in college. Sadly, I soon realized the math required to do that was soon beyond me. However, I did have occasion to explore science and religion a good bit while serving the Unitarian Church in Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington is home to the headquarters of DuPont Chemical Company, and I had a large number of chemical engineers in my congregation. So it is in the spirit of that great Unitarian minister, Joseph Priestley, who is also the discoverer of oxygen, that I offer this morning's reflection on science and religion and how do they come in contact with each other. Now, that said, I propose a bit of a twist on the usual. Most of the time when we think about science and religion, the question arises, are we comparing apples to apples or apples to watermelon? For example, science pulls out all of its latest discoveries and its speculations. Meanwhile, the religion that it often gets compared to is either medieval Catholicism or early 20th century Protestantism, Protestant fundamentalism. No John Cobb, no Pierre de Chardin, both Christians, one Catholic, one Protestant, who've thought very deeply on science and religion. Science, it seems, just can't get over what happened to Galileo. Galileo, you will recall, was an Italian astronomer, postulated that rather than coming up with these kind of crazy models of describe the stars and the planets moving around the Earth, that it makes more sense to think of the Earth revolving around the sun. Now, this got him into hot water with no one less than the Pope, at a time in history when being on the wrong side of the Pope could mean excommunication and death. Now, needless to say, Galileo recanted, but he had an eye on him for the rest of his career. Copernicus was smarter. He had observations and measurements and formulas that definitively showed that Galileo was right. But Copernicus sat on that information, and it was not released until after his death, so as to prevent the church from further complicating things. Sir Isaac Newton, another Unitarian, contributed greatly to our understanding of the physical universe, only to have Einstein not undo, but recast Newtonian physics. It appears to be at first an objective physical world, but we don't move at the speed of light, but get closer to that speed and things get a little strange. Time and space turn out to be localized experiences relative to the observer. That is to say, he created a theory of relativity. But what if we change the game just a little bit? Instead of comparing quantum physics or astrophysics or even chaos theory to Western philosophy and religion, what if we turned instead to Buddhism? Buddhism has a radically different worldview. It makes certain claims about the physical universe, what we might call metaphysics, the branch of philosophy that deals with this stuff. And its metaphysical claims are quite different, radically so, in some cases, from the assumptions of folks like Aristotle or Plato or Thomas Aquinas. One of the more interesting differences is that Buddhism believes that the universe has no beginning and no end. It just keeps on going in infinity, or should I say eternity, in both directions. That's a big difference because Buddhism is not interested in first causes or an unmoved mover that seems to take up a lot of the conversation in Western philosophy and theology. Furthermore, Buddhism says that everything that exists has three characteristics. Doesn't matter if you're talking about galaxies or quarks or human beings, the following is true for all of them. 1, they are impermanent. 2, they are all interconnected. And 3, they are all empty. These are called the 3 marks of existence. And we heard one of the co-authors from our reading this morning, Trinh Thuan Duan, reference these a little bit. And as sort of a way to organize the sermon today, I thought I'd talk about each one of these ideas, give something of an example or illustration, and see what science has to say about each. So let's start with the first one, and arguably the most obvious, impermanence. Now, impermanence is the notion that everything, and I mean everything, in the world, in the universe, is constantly changing. Nothing stays exactly the way it does from moment to moment. I was inspired this last week when Marvel dropped the newest Doctor Strange trailer. It reminded me of the first movie in which Doctor Strange comes into possession of a time stone. And with this stone, he's able to move time backwards and forwards in a local way, a little like Einstein. And to demonstrate this in his first movie, he has an apple that he just finished. And by manipulating time, he can make the apple go back so that it is no longer eaten but looks fresh and brand new. He can move time forward to the point when it has rotten and become a piece of garbage. Back and forth, he could play with the impermanence of this apple. And if we think about everything in this room, the pews, the pulpit, the orders of service, they all come from wood or paper. Trees give their lives to create this room. But why stop there? Think microscopically. The carbon atoms, the oxygen and the hydrogen that make up a tree were forged in the nuclear fires of our galaxy. Complex elements needed to make photosynthesis possible are built inside the unimaginable heat of the stars. And those stars collapse or explode, and that hot material is added to until you get the complexity of our periodic table. All of it, everything in this room, including you and me, have our ultimate birth in that amazing system of recycled stardust. And yes, someday, billions of years from now, our star will become a gas giant. The Earth will be sucked into its gravitational pull, and the process will start all over again. So needless to say, everything is impermanent. That was actually one of the first teachings that the Buddha taught after his enlightenment. And anyone familiar with molecules and atoms can quickly see this. And even philosophically, it makes sense. If we lived in a purely deterministic universe, then there would be no novelty. Nothing new would ever happen. We would relive the same moment over and over and over and over. Kind of like that movie Groundhog's Day, only no one would have the ability to break out of the cycle. By the way, a surprisingly deep movie if you really want to think about religion and philosophy, but I'll save my comments on Groundhog's Day for another sermon. Now, according to the Buddha, just after his enlightenment, the worst existential problem that faces humanity is what he calls delusion. Sometimes it's translated as ignorance, but I think that's misleading. It isn't that we're dumb and we need to go to school in order to acquire more knowledge and thereby dispel our ignorance. No, the problem is that we see the world incorrectly. We are deluded about it. We see the universe one way and make assumptions about it, but those assumptions often turn out to be wrong. Specifically, we assume that things, people, objects we care about, situations we want to be in or see come about, we assume that they are permanent, when in fact they are always changing. We suffer because we wish that those things we love would stay near us and the things that would go away would just stay away. But the world does not conform to that desire. We assume that that apple will always be there, that it's solid and won't change, but it's a hard assumption to give up. The second aspect of existence is interconnection. Now this, again, may seem obvious at some level. We Unitarian Universalists have a similar idea. We talk about the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. That is to say that everything that exists comes about due to various conditions in our environment. Nothing comes into being on its own. There are no first causes. Nothing springs fully formed out of the forehead of Zeus. The best description of this, almost classic, really now, comes from the recently deceased Buddhist writer Thich Nhat Hanh. In one of his books, he explains the Heart Sutra, which makes an even stranger claim. He says, if you have the soul of a poet, you can see the cloud that floats above the page of this book. Obviously, it's an example that loses something if you read it on your Kindle, but I think the principle still works. What he means is that the pages of a book are made out of wood pulp. Wood pulp comes from trees, as we mentioned. Trees require someone to take care of them, help them grow before they're cut down. Trees require sunlight, clean air, and water in the form of rain. And in order to get rain, you need to deposit said moisture from a cloud. Thus, the page of the book is dependent on all those factors I mentioned, to say nothing of all the things that are needed to make all those things come into being. The growth and education of the person who cut the tree down, for example, or the milling of trees and the publishing deal that got penned to allow Thich Nhat Hanh to write all of it down in the first place. All those ingredients, if you will, go into the book, the page. It includes the tree, the farmer, the rain, and yes, the cloud. We can say that because it is impermanent, all those factors are interconnected with the book itself. In quantum science, there's a rather strange phenomenon that we know as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. It says that science can know the position of a little electron, for example, but not its momentum, at least not perfectly so. If you look, then it changes. Now, if you're a fan of the show Big Bang Theory, they talked about Schrodinger's cat a lot, the thought experiment that says that if there is a box dependent on whether or not that electron is known, then the cat is both alive and dead simultaneously until you look at it. The point is that the observer of quantum experiments becomes a key part of the system. The results are dependent on whether or not someone has been looking inside that box. To say it another way, they are interconnected. Now, the third mark of existence is perhaps the hardest to explain. It is the statement that everything is, quote, empty. Emptiness, called shunyata in Sanskrit, is a kind of subtle concept that can be hard to grasp. It comes from a more mystical approach to life, I guess. Some say to grasp it at all is to attain the Buddha's enlightenment itself. And so Buddhists of various types and places, particularly Mahayana Buddhism, have set out to explain this concept of emptiness. And these explanations created a number of texts, things like the Perfection of Wisdom sutras. There is the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines, or the Perfection of Wisdom in 500 lines. The latter, that one, Perfection of Wisdom in 500 lines, is better known as the Diamond Sutra, though the most famous is the Perfection of Wisdom in 50 lines, which I mentioned before, the Heart Sutra. Kind of the main liturgical text, certainly, of Zen, for example. In part, the Heart Sutra says this: all things are empty. Nothing is born, nothing dies, nothing is pure, nothing is stained, nothing increases and nothing decreases. So in emptiness, There is no body, no feeling, no thought, no will, no consciousness. Bodhisattvas rely on the perfection of wisdom, and so with no delusions they feel no fear and have nirvana here and now. All the Buddhas of past, present, and future rely on the perfection of wisdom and live in full enlightenment. End quote. This sounds contradictory, confusing. And in a way, that's kind of intentional. Our rational minds do not serve us well here in this circumstance. But while I was reading The Quantum and the Lotus, it occurred to me that there might be a better way to explain emptiness, using the concept of potential. Think of things as having potential energy. Objects that are high up have the potential to fall. Their potential energy is converted to kinetic energy. Similarly, gasoline has the potential to explode. Indeed, that's the whole point. A combustion engine is just a controlled explosion that transforms that potential of gasoline into mechanical movement. You can't see this potential, but it is surely there. There was a great show, I don't know if it's still on, but it was one of these crazy reality shows called Destroy, Build, Destroy. Did anyone ever watch this? I only caught a few episodes, but they would take things like, I don't know, an RV or a car or something like that, and they would pack it full of explosives and then blow it up. That's the destroy part. And then the folks who were on this show were mechanics or engineers of some sort or another. I don't entirely remember their background, but they were far more mechanically inclined than I could ever hope to be. And they gather up all this debris, all this garbage that had just sort of exploded, and they would make something new out of what they found. And in a way, it's sort of like when people go to a flea market or something like, or a garage sale, and you buy a bunch of junk, and then you fix it up to make it kind of pretty or artistic. They call that upcycling. Well, these folks would gather up all these materials and build something beautiful out of this debris, and then blow it up again. Because blowing things up are fun, and that's good television, I guess. But it illustrates what the Heart Sutra is saying. Nothing is created or destroyed, nothing increased or decreased. It just transforms from being destroyed to being built to being destroyed again. Everything, everyone could become something new and creative. And thus, everything has the potential to be something else. And it's for that reason that the Buddha also preached compassion and loving kindness. We should use or harness our potential to help others be happy, to help others be free from suffering. This notion of potential hit somewhat close to home for me last Sunday, a week ago. 12 years ago, my beloved Detroit Lions had the first pick in the draft, which they used on this hot, up-and-coming quarterback, Matthew Stafford. And for 12 years, people would debate just how good is Matthew Stafford. Granted, the Lions had some bad teams in those 12 years, but there were some pretty good ones too. Just enough to torture us with hope. And for 12 years, Detroit, and to a lesser extent the rest of the NFL, debated how much potential does Matthew Stafford have as a quarterback. Well, last year, after 12 years, he left us and went to the LA Rams, having come up with some cockamamie deal at San Cabo or wherever it was that he was at with the head coach. Moved to LA, and last Sunday became the winning quarterback of the Super Bowl. 1 year, and he had a championship. The potential was always there. Not that I'm bitter. Not that I'm bitter. And so it is that Buddhism and modern science have very compatible ways of looking at the world. That was the conclusion of the book. There were some disagreements, but those seem to be relatively minor ones. Science and Buddhism understand our world to be a constant flow of time and space, localized moments that interact with others in unknowable and yet predictable ways. Both offer a healthy skepticism to accepting the truth. Both are utilitarian. Science seeks truth for its own sake. Buddhism seeks to know truth, but in order to relieve the suffering of living beings. So their values and goals may differ, but their general outlook is compatible. May we not be tricked into the deluded assumption that impermanent things are permanent. May we feel our bonds of interconnection to each other and to the earth. And may we be both creative and compassionate in actualizing our potential, our empty Buddha nature. For if we do, we will be a great blessing, a bodhisattva, for all we meet. I love you. Go in peace. Amen. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join in singing hymn number 313, Oh, What a Piece of Work We Are.
One more joy. It's wonderful to see more of you back in the sanctuary today. Thanks for coming, and we look forward to seeing more of you. Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with Asaning for Refugees. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the QR code in your order of service. And from your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. If you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are also found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We extinguish the chalice here that it may glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.